Hey, welcome everyone to our free live event on voicemail messages and your host, Tony Parinello.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. Thanks for putting this together, and thanks everybody for joining us. Beth is going to be advancing the slides because my computer just does not like this go-to training system for whatever reason. I'm not sure. So, Beth, you are running the dashboard, so if you would, please just go to the next slide.
Okay, we're there.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to work on getting callbacks from our voicemail messages that we leave from decision makers. Now, for those of you who maybe don't know, I created something called Selling to Veto, and veto stands for the very important top officer, or the person with the ultimate veto power. I've spent pretty much my adult life perfecting that process for myself, and so far for a little over 2.5 million salespeople in the majority of the Fortune 1000 companies that use some part of my curriculum and my intellectual work to get appointments with these difficult to reach top decision makers. So when I say the word veto, I want you to think about the person with the ultimate veto power. They can have titles like president, CEO, owner, or other privileged C-suite individuals, including people like vice presidents of marketing or vice presidents of sales or whatever, finance. So those are the people we're talking about getting callbacks from today on this free event. So Beth, if you would, let's go to the next slide.
Okay, we're there.
All right, now, like anything else that you try for the first time, it's going to feel a little odd at first. It's going to sound a little weird at first. Everything we talk about today is not a test. In other words, you're not my private little guinea pig. I know this stuff works. I use it myself, and I teach other people to use it very successfully. So feel comfortable that what you're about to learn has been proven. However, you need to make it yours. You need to put your thumbprint on it. So I'm going to give you the context of all this and give you some words and phrases, and I want you to stay pretty close to the words and phrases I'm going to use, but you got to put your own thumbprint on it, and I could help you do that after this event. So here again, like anything new, it might feel a little odd at first, but endure and embrace and have an open mind. And Beth, if you would, let's go to the next slide, the rules of engagement.
Okay, we're there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now, here's a few rules of engagement about leaving voicemail messages for these people I call veto. It must be totally void of the it of what you sell and rich in the does of what you sell. Now, I know that probably sounds a little weird right now, but you'll get it in a minute about what I'm talking about here. Whenever we talk about the it, what it is, it gets negatively prejudged, and that's not cool. But when we talk about what it does or what it can possibly do for veto, then they're going to lean into your messages. So that's number one rule of engagement. Number two, your voicemail messages need to be a storyline, and we're going to talk about 4 different voicemail messages, but when in reality, when the rubber hits the road, you might have more than 4 messages to leave. We'll see how that shakes out. Each message, of course, and rule of engagement number 3, needs to be different. We never, ever, ever should repeat a voicemail message. And number 4 rule of engagement here, we're going to piggyback other modalities of communications with our voicemail messages. And sometimes the power of a voicemail message can be that it's connected to something else. Okay, so those are the rules of engagement. Now let's move forward and do a deep dive into each one. Beth, if you would, next slide.
Rule number 1.
Okay, the rule number 1, back to it needs to be void of the it of your product, service, or solution. And to explain that a little bit further, Beth, very quickly to the next slide, if you would.
Okay.
All right, the it of what it is. It is a cloud-based storage system. It is network security. It is a piece of software. It is a piece of hardware. It is office supplies. Whenever you say the it of what you sell, chances are veto already has it and doesn't need any more of it, or it's negatively prejudged because they just don't want to take the time to talk about what it is. So it's easily dismissed, and the it is typically full of buzzwords, industry jargon, acronyms, technobabble. It's just the wrong language for veto. And whenever we use that wrong language, it's an immediate emotional and physical and sometimes even psychological disconnect. So we're going to stay away from the it of what your product, service, or solution does. Beth, next slide, please.
Okay.
Which leaves us only one choice, and that's our voicemail messages and just about everything else we do for Veto needs to be rich in what our product and service and solution does or can possibly do in the following four areas. That's it. Growing revenue, increasing effectiveness and efficiencies of anyone or everyone or anything or everything in Vito's organization, cutting costs, and mitigating risk or avoiding risk altogether. So the does of your product, service, or solution needs to touch on one or more of these four areas that every Vito in the free world really cares about. Beth, if you would, the next slide.
Message number one.
You got it. The messages that we leave are going to have what I choose to call bookends. It's a way to get into the voicemail message. Here's an example of a bookend. Ms. Importante, this is Will Prosper. Sorry we missed each other. That's how you would start your voicemail message. Now, I'll give you an option to this. Beth, if you would, go to the next slide.
Okay.
Here's another example of how to get into your voicemail message. Mr. Benefito, this is Will Prosper. If you were in your office to take my call, we could have had a chat about. And so these bookends are conversationally based and get us into the meat, the real important stuff of our voicemail message. Now, here again, I want you to look at these words and think about these words, but I also want you to think about the context of all of this, okay? So you've got a little leeway here, but a bookend is a conversational piece that gets you into your voicemail message. Beth, if you would, the next slide, the social proof or a suspicion.
And we are there.
Okay, now, after you say the bookend, you could bring in either social proof or a suspicion that you might have. Now, with the Vitos of the world, they have a very strong external frame of reference, which means they're interested in what else is going on in their industry, their community, their competitors, and stuff like that. So bringing social proof in that is relevant and very specific is a real nice step in your voicemail messages. Okay, so social proof could sound something like this. 5 other business owners in the tri-state area trust us to, okay? Now, here again, the words and phrases that you see in brackets I'm making up. So this social proof is very specific to business owners in the tri-state area. If they're not business owners and they're not in the tri-state area, they're not going to give a you-know-what about that social proof. So your social proof needs to be relevant and specific. Now, if you don't have social proof, that's okay, because you can suspect, you can have a prediction, you can make an estimate all day long as you say in your voicemails that what they're about to hear is a suspicion, is an estimate, or is a prediction. Now, after you say that, in either or, not both, you're either going to use social proof or you're going to suspect something, you're going to dive into the next slide. And Beth, if you would, we're back into rule of engagement number 1, if you would here. Rich in the does?
We're there.
Okay. Now, I'm going to guess, and make an assumption here, that whatever you sell, the product, service, and solution you sell, could do at least 1 or 2 or 3 or all 4 of these areas. They can probably help an organization grow revenue. They could probably help an organization increase effectiveness and efficiencies, cut costs, and mitigate risk. If they couldn't do this stuff, you'd probably be out of business. And so I want you to think right now of what your product, service, and solution does for this Vito that you're leaving the voicemail message for to grow revenue, increase effectiveness and or efficiencies, cut costs, or mitigate risk. Now, you just pick 2. That's all you need. Now, if you're struggling with this, I can help you do this. I can help you dig into your offering to the marketplace you serve and pull this stuff out. I've been doing it for years. I know how to do it, and I've got a little secret sauce to help everybody do this. So Don't get stuck right here, but these are the 4 areas that we need to articulate what our product, service, or solution does or can possibly do. And we're going to do this in our voicemail message. So, Beth, if you would, next slide.
Okay.
Um, so now, here's the social proof. This is after the bookend. 5 other business owners in the tri-state area trust our proven sustainable process. Let's hold on that for a moment. I want you to start calling your product, service, or solution proven sustainable processes, okay? To grow new revenue by as much as 5% while measurably cutting a top 10 annual expense. Where are you coming up with this, Tony? Okay, everything in brackets here I'm kind of making up, but I want to underline something for you and underscore something. See that top 10 annual expense? Whenever you can cut a cost, you never want to mention the cost item it is, the line item it is. We can cut your telecommunications cost. We could cut your office supply cost. As soon as you say that, veto is going to stop listening or redirect you to somebody. Well, go talk to the purchasing department. I don't have time for this. And so we express every cost savings idea we have as a relative cost saving idea to veto's entire expenses. We need to know what that is. We need to know where that fits in. Okay? Beth, if you would, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Here's our does statement with suspicion. In other words, it's without social proof. We suspect our repeatable, sustainable process could help further grow new revenue by as much as 5% while measurably cutting a top 10 annual expense. The faster you get to this statement, the better off you are, whether it's preceded by social proof or a suspicion you have. Now comes in the next slide, which is the ending bookend. Beth, if you would, the next slide.
We are there.
This is how you end your first voicemail message. This topic could be important to both of us. That's why you'll be hearing from me, and now you're going to give the specific time and day you're going to return this call. Then you could say something like, if it isn't a good time, please let me know, and now leave your name and number, and do so slowly. Don't do it real fast so people can't understand it or hear it and have to rewind and listen to it again. So this is the ending bookend. And now your first voicemail message is done. Beth, if you would, the next slide.
Okay.
We're going to wait 3 to 5 business days. If you don't get a call back, please don't get your feelings hurt. These vetoes have got a lot of things to do. They got a lot on their plate. We're not always top of mind, not yet anyway. So if you don't hear back in 3 to 5 business days, you're going to leave voicemail message number 2. Now that we have the context of this down, we got the vibe of it down, Beth, if you would, go to the next slide and let's take a quick look at voicemail message number 2.
All righty.
Okay. Ms. Importante, this is Will Prosper. Since my last voicemail message, we've posted an additional achievement we made possible with an organization in your industry. Now, you name what that is. And so back to that list of 4 areas that vetoes care about: the raising of revenues, the increasing of efficiencies and effectiveness, the cutting of cost, and the mitigation of risk. You bring in another area that you can possibly help with on this voicemail message. In this case, my example is mitigation of out-of-compliant fines. At this point, it's hard to tell if this could be of importance to you. That's why you'll be hearing from me, and now again, specific day, date, and time. In the meantime, you could reach me at, now you give your phone number, and you say something like, looking forward to our first conversation. Thanks for listening. Have a masterful rest of the day. That's voicemail message number 2. Beth, if you would, next slide.
Okay.
Here again, folks, if you don't get a call back, don't get your feelings hurt. These are busy people. We have to earn an important spot in their day and earn the time for them to either call us back or be waiting for our next call. Speaking of waiting for our next call, when we make it, if we get dumped into voicemail, here's the 3rd voicemail message you can possibly leave. Beth, if you would, next slide.
Okay.
is importante. This is Will Prosper. I've taken the liberty of sending you an email with 2 critical questions that will determine if our proven sustainable process could deliver measurable results in the next 60 days. The subject line is our conversation on now the specific day, date, and time that you're going to be calling. Just hit reply with our answers, or we can chat about it on that specific day, date, and time. In the meantime, you could reach me at, now you give your phone number and speak slowly when you do, and you might even want to repeat it twice. Looking forward to our first conversation. Thanks for listening, and have a masterful rest of the day. Now, if you're thinking, what the heck are these questions? I can help you put together 2 questions that when asked will catapult your sales process and your sales cycle with the person you're leaving these messages for. Beth, if you would, next slide.
Okay.
Here again, folks, if you don't get a call back, don't get your feelings hurt. You're going to wait 3 to 5 business days, and then you're going to launch on your next voicemail message. Beth, if you would, the next slide.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. Once again, the words, we can change a little bit, and I'm willing to work with you to do that, but the context of this is what's important. Message number 4 could sound something like this. Ms. Importante, Will Prosper here with a bit of concern. Perhaps this isn't a good time to pursue the results you've been hearing about on my prior voicemail messages and email. Now, at this point, you can reiterate what those are very quickly, and then you can say something like, so if it's okay with you, I'll reach back out to you in the next 60 days. In the meantime, if you would like to have a conversation about creating similar or greater results, you can reach me at, here again, your phone number. Do so slowly, and then you say, thanks for listening, and have a masterful rest of the day. Now, I am prepared to help you tailor each one of these messages, and if you need more than 4, that's okay, but in my experience, 4 usually works, and you usually will get a call back within these 4 messages. If the messages have the kind of stuff we've been talking about. Beth, if you would, next slide.
Next steps, we're there.
All right, thank you. Now, here's a little bit of homework for each and every one of you. I know we all love homework, just the thought of it. Create your does list. And in other words, what does your product do, or what could it possibly do in those 4 areas for veto? Then download this archive. Every slide here has been archived. My voice has been archived in sync with the slides. You're going to get a copy of all this, okay? So you can listen to it time and time again, and then take action and use it. And let us know how it's working for you. If you need any help at all in personalizing every step of this and the entire first conversation, your entire sales process with very important top officers, you can always join Club Veto. In the meantime, keep tuning in, keep listening and watching our newsletters and attending these free sessions. And thank you very much for your time. And Beth, I want to thank you for bringing us all together.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a masterful rest of the day. See you again.